Мои коллеги, сразу говорю, вот видите, гражданское общество может проконтролировать отсутствие меня на рабочем месте, как народного депутата, поэтому я буду краток. У меня есть два вопроса, скорее вопроса пожелания. Прежде всего, господин Кокс, мы благодарим вас за содействие в организации деятельности такой рабочей группы и надеемся, что открытость парламента будет в дальнейшем способствовать действительно эффективности и подотчетности деятельности парламентариев. Особенно это касается вопросов, например, для меня важно это вопрос, связанный с работой в мажоритарном округе. Я 6 раз народный депутат, 3 раза от мажоритарного округа одного и того же. Поэтому действительно это полезное мероприятие. Хотел бы лишь обратить внимание на ряд аспектов, которые я вижу, потому что ведь в открытой дискуссии, в откровенном разговоре важно всегда говорить об оценке рисков. Как в оценке рисков работы деятельности общественных организаций, народных депутатов, парламента и государственного управления в целом. Безусловно, я понимаю, что когда вы говорите об успехах будущего правительства Гройсмана или его как спикера Верховного Совета, вы, как толерантный человек, не критикуете. Вы сами сказали, это ваша республика, вы ее строите. Но, к сожалению, как показывает практика, ведь Гройсман был октябренком. Вы знаете, что такое октябренок? В советский период времени были октябрята, пионеры и комсомольцы. Так вот, у нас была такая шутка, мы не пашем, не сеем, не строим, мы гордимся общественным строем. Был сформирован такой комсомол. Я очень не хотел бы, потому что на примерах отдельных общественных организаций в своем регионе я вижу, как они от цели открытости, эффективности переходят к цели процесса контроля. Ведь важно контролировать народного депутата, но проще всего повесить на него чип и камеру. И тогда вообще конфликта интересов в принципе не будет, даже в квартире. У меня на эту тему, когда мы дискутируем по этим вопросам с посольством Соединенных Штатов, мы видим понимание в этом вопросе. Когда мы обращались к господину Домбинскому, в частности, вопросы, связанные с электронным декларированием и объемом электронного декларирования, и 6 законам по спецконфискации, то мы ни разу не слышали критики Европейского Союза на эту тему. Мне интересно понять, вы действительно считаете, что тот объем декларирования и, допустим, в одной и той же графе записаны несовершеннолетние дети, совершеннолетние дети? И те документы, которые отправлялись в Европейскую комиссию на эту тему, не оставались без рассмотрения. Это неправильно. Причем это было не только мнение одного народного депутата, который, как я, представляет общественное объединение или организацию межфракционную запрещено запрещать. Это было мнение практически всех руководителей фракций и одного из заместителей спикера парламента. Вопрос закона об оппозиции, ведь он не ставится. И теперь простой пример я вам привожу, почему я говорю о том, что имплементация без оценки рисков законодательства, касающегося ограничения прав человека, в том числе и представляющих публичную власть, является проблемой. Мы вчера слышали заявление про арест господина Косько. Я всегда говорю товарищу Петренко, министру юстиции, вы представьте напротив себя, поставьте портрет макеевского прокурора и посчитайте, что у него в руках находится то законодательство, которое вы ему даете. Что разве не понятно, что имплементация такого законодательства может привести к использованию правоохранительной системы против оппозиции? В неустоявшемся гражданском обществе с использованием, опять же, правоохранительной системы с целью продолжения давления власти. У меня просьба все-таки, вы понимаете, с точки зрения оценки рисков, а к вопросу ОБСЄ все-таки больше внимания уделять вопросам актуальних проблем прав чоловіка. Спасибо.
В парламент подається більше 2000 різних законопроєктів, їх не встигають розглядати і планують обмежити вал подань законопроєктів у парламент. А як буде з тим, щоб громадяни могли подавати свої ініціативи народним депутатам у парламент? Що з цього питання планують? Чи дійсно планують обмежувати вал законопроєктів, обмежувати право депутата подавати законопроєкт? Є проєкт, щоб не менше 20 депутатів підписались, і тільки тоді це будуть розглядати. Як із цим? Дякую.
My name is Olena Pristayko, Ukrainian think tank liaison office in Brussels, and I'm happy just to confirm that the Ukrainian week in the European Parliament was really a big deal. Everybody was talking about it, and in the frame of the Ukraine week, we had an honor to work together with Andrei Plenkovich, with Karl, and all the people in the European Parliament Secretariat to have our debates within the frame. And on behalf of our member organizations, which is 21 Ukrainian think tanks, we very much welcome your work on reforming the Верховна Рада. We see how seriously you take this, and we would like to express our hope that Верховна Рада is the first institution of Ukraine which you are seriously work on, and other institutions, both on national and local levels, will follow. And I hope that other institutions of the European Union will catch up your example, and probably we will see the reports on Cabinet of Ministers, administration of the President, and all other essential institutions. And we are committed natural partners to you. Thank you very much.
It was commitment, not question.
Let me take the first comment had a lot in it, so the MP is not here at the moment. But let me take just one or 2 points, if I can, from what was said on the specific interaction between draftee declaration laws and what the Commission commented on. I simply don't know. I have not been involved. I don't know who did what or who did not do what. So just to say this. But one of the issues that we spend a lot of time discussing as a team, and I introduced key members of the team earlier, was as regards code of conduct, should we make any comments about traditional parliamentary immunity? And if you read the text of the report, you will see what we had to say. There are good reasons why we have parliamentary immunity, and there's a long tradition. And so there's a very good first principles case for having immunity for parliamentarians. However, parliamentary immunity should not be a shield for criminality. And so parliamentary immunity can risk to be greatly abused. And at the limit, it could be, in some places, at some times, that persons are elected purely to avoid criminal prosecution and not actually elected in a public service and in the national interest. In such a case, it would be desirable to be able to decouple the immunity from such a person to avoid such an abuse. However, there is the other side, and it came in the question. Where you lack the classic separation of powers between politics, prosecution, and judges, you can risk to find a system where justice is abused in a selective way by placing the agencies of prosecution and justice into the field to get your political opponent. And in such a case, immunity can be a positive protection. And so we felt, in the case of Ukraine today, while we understand that the abusive part could be real for some minority, that the risk of abuse through selective justice could be even more real. And so we exercised a certain prudence in our opinion. But we did have a very deep reflection and discussion about this, and we tried to write honestly the 2 points of view and why we had arrived at this point with a somewhat conservative view, not because we stand for the criminal abuse of the immunity system, but we fear that its general removal as an immunity tool could risk, in the circumstances of the Ukrainian prosecution and justice system, other kinds of abuses which are not desirable in a democracy. The question from the journalist from Kharkiv is a very interesting question. And I think it's an important question to try to avoid misunderstanding what is the intention of our proposal. The question of good lawmaking, and this is, who is involved, how open is it, and all these things, we can tick a box. We know what that thing should be in principle. But it's important not to confuse the political illusion of making a law with the legislative practice of actually making a law. And this is the distinction. A large part of what is a law, a draft in Verkhovna Rada, is what I would call a national illusion. Like a magician who makes you look here at a mountain of inactivity but represents it as achievement. And you need to puncture the illusion to come to the reality. So we were evidence-led. I didn't come here knowing those things. We asked a simple question: how many draft laws do you have? The table is in our report. And how many draft laws do you pass? And what we discovered when we looked at a cycle of 12 months, that about 7% of member initiative laws, drafts, became legislation, and 93% did not. And at that rate of progress, even over 5 years, the percentage would not be very high. So we asked a question. Imagine for a moment in your journalism that of the 100% that you write, that 93% was never published. Do you not think that you as a journalist and your editors would ask the question, how come 93% of your effort equals 0 and only 7% ever becomes public? And so we said the Verkhovna Rada needs to ask itself the question, why would you spend many hours discussing on committees, asking the public service to go through the legal drafting, looking to see is this compatible with whichever law? Why would you do all of that if only 7% becomes law? So we said, would it not make sense for all of you to take a little step back? Not because you shouldn't talk to civil society, that's not the point. Not because you shouldn't have the right to initiate, that is not the point. But that you should manage it in some way that allows the system to add real quality control, and that allows through the quality control the prospect that more initiatives actually end up as more law, rather than that more initiatives end up as a great illusion of law, which it is not. So people call this, as we spoke to them, legislative spam, like on your computer when you get those messages you don't want. But when I looked at the volume, I called it a legislative tsunami. And like a tsunami, the flow is so great that it drowns everything in the way. It drowns the administration. It drowns the advisors. It drowns the committee time. And everybody complained to me, we don't have enough time in our committee. When I spoke to Mr. Semarak, I think they were looking at the EU compatibility of 1,960 draft laws. If Mr. Semarak was Solomon and had the greatest wisdom in history, he couldn't deal with such a volume. It's an illusion. And so the necessity to look at this is not to take away rights, not to remove civil society, but to have a philosophy that less is more. Because by doing less with real quality, you get more real results. And what do you want of your legislature? Do you want a grand illusion or a good outcome? And if you put your hand up for a good outcome, the less is more philosophy will bring better quality. And who should decide? Because it's the MP initiative, we think the MP should decide to respect the constitutional role of the MP. So not the conciliation board, but that the MPs own the priority list. Now, this is going to be discussed whenever there's a working committee, and the Rada will have to take its own ownership. And the Rada may want that, it may not want it. But I would urge you as civil society, don't misunderstand what it is. The purpose of this is to make more better law rather than to sustain the tsunami illusion of lawmaking where only 7% becomes law. And what do you want in Ukraine? The game of pretending to change or the substance of actually changing? That is the core question. And if you want the substance of change, you have to find the methodologies to get you there.
President has been very eloquent as always and almost answered all the questions. I will just have 2 points which I felt really reminding me of the times when I was also a pioneer. When I went to first grade of my elementary school in '76 in Croatia, we all had to become pioneers. So the fact that I was a pioneer didn't prevent me later on to be the president of the European Law Students Association for the whole of Europe, to be a Croatian diplomat, to be a Croatian MP, to become an MEP, and to become someone who is very convinced that Ukraine should go the European way. Just a small comment on the first statement. My second comment regarding the seeing the wood from the trees. The number of laws registered as drafts and as proposals does not necessarily reflect the good efficiency of the parliamentary work. I think the way that the President has described the input and the real outcome is significant enough. So what RADA needs to do is a little bit to streamline its model. What type of model of the work it wants to have. In many countries of the EU, most of the legislation that is adopted, like it is the case in the EU, actually comes from the executive. It comes from the Commission. No matter how creative, knowledgeable, experienced, with a fantastic background one MP can be, bear in mind it's not the same when the whole administrative system is behind the legislative proposal. That's why when we were doing our own harmonization exercise, and even if you had to adopt only the laws that are basically required through the implementation of the association agreement, your legislative agenda would be more than filled. Not to mention all the other things which are acquis non-related, plus the whole individual legislative initiative. I can tell you the following. A sober legislation process takes into account what exists on the EU level, what you want to achieve on a national level, what is the impact with all the other legislation that already exists, what is the relationship with your constitution, what is the regulatory impact assessment, very important part of the legislative process. And that means that you must know in advance, with a thorough analysis, what will one new law adopted change in institutional terms, in budgetary implication terms, and in the real operation of the actors that are supposed to implement it. All of this is very, very difficult to be done by an own initiative of one MP. It can be done, but it's not the same if the entire process is done by the institutional actors that exist therefore. So I think we need to find a way, of course, keeping the liberty of the individual initiative. Nobody wants to prevent it. But the idea is a little bit to get this sense of realism in terms of what is feasible and what is really useful. Because after the end of the legislature, you need to turn back and see what's your heritage. What did you achieve? It's much better to have the key blocks achieved, visible, recognizable, useful for the citizen than hundreds of initiatives which didn't go through. That is not called a success normally. And thank you very much, Olena, for mentioning the good dialogue we have. Just for you to understand, as a chairman of the delegation for Ukraine, I spent literally 50% of my time on a daily basis dealing with dossiers that had to do with Ukraine. Even though I was elected in Croatia. Anya Bazilo knows, she was working in my office for 6 months. Just that you understand the intensity of the general EU involvement and the bulk of activities that happened related to Ukraine in the EU institution. There are some other countries which are also very popular, but I have to admit, Karl, if I would not mistake that we are in top 3 in last 2 or 3 years in terms of visibility and identity of events. Not only formal bodies, but all other individual initiative MEPs actions that are taken. So I hope that this awareness actually is understood here in Kiev. It's much more than it is normal for a country which is still not a member or member to be in next few days.
I was thinking, just from my own perspective of having, lived in this country now for a year and a half, and some of the challenges that you face, especially as you're a civil society and you're looking to change the legislative framework. You have this massive history of legislation that exists, and then you have a massive set of problems that you face. I can think simply of the environment, which is a really complex context. And I think the challenge will be for civil society, from my perspective, to gain the depth necessary to intervene in a comprehensive and coherent way around what is legislation, to actually understand what legislation is there, but also where is it that you need to go. It isn't a single law. It has to be a comprehensive package of laws around social protection, around environment, around corruption and judicial reform. So I think that, it isn't something that you can approach easily or superficially. So the challenge for civil society will often be to simply form the alliances necessary that give you the depth to actually speak to specific legislative areas with real coherence and with real confidence. This is not an easy task. But otherwise you risk being somehow superficial relative to the challenges that face the country, relative to the body of law that already exists, and relative to the changes that you would like to see. So this is just where I would like to encourage the civil society to think creatively about how you can achieve this kind of an impact, this kind of a depth, in order to really help move the legislative reform in Ukraine. And then with that, I would just say thank you very much from my side. Yeah?
Про відеокамеру на лацкані народного депутата. Класна тема. Мені здається, дуже... я б трансформував цей коментар в два таких, можливо, риторичних запитання. Перше, напевно, стеження і моніторинг діяльності депутатів – це зовсім дві різні речі. Ми, звісно, відокремлюємо, як представник громадянського суспільства, ми відокремлюємо стеження від моніторингу, але, напевно, два моменти, які б я хотів зафіксувати. Перше, звичайно, є межа. Є межа між те, що називається приватне життя, privacy, і підзвітність. Звичайно, ми, як громадянське суспільство, спільно з парламентарями маємо виробити певні критерії, інструменти у цю межу. Другий момент – це, напевно, всі зазначали, що має бути система оцінки ефективності, якась об'єктивна система оцінки діяльності депутатів. І якісна, і кількісна. І ви бачите, напевно, такий формальний підхід. Ми зробимо певні KPIs або ключові показники ефективності, кількість законопроєктів. Я думаю, що тут декілька депутати взагалі можуть бути лідерами, провокуючи цей цунамі законопроєктів. Напевно, це не так. І це виклик для всіх нас створити, напевно, якусь систему оцінки якості діяльності депутата. І, напевно, це не дуже легка система, тому що, напевно, велика кількість не кількісних, а скоріше якісних показників ми маємо врахувати, особливо робота з виборцями, робота з громадськими організаціями і тому подібне. І такі штуки, напевно, не дуже легко обчислити в яких кількісних показниках. Хотів би зазначити, що ми сьогодні протягом двох сесій, які почнуться після обіду, це я хотів би, так знаєте, зробити невеличкий анонс, ми будемо говорити про стосунки громадян України Верховної Ради сьогодні і завтра, це буде відразу після обіду. І ще одна сесія, яка почнеться в 15:30. Ми будемо говорити про парламентський контроль і контроль за парламентом. Саме там наші партнери з таких поважних організацій, лабораторія законодавчих ініціатив, ОПОРА, Інтерньюз, НЦПД, Рух Чесно будуть представляти, реанімаційний пакет реформ будуть представляти і свій досвід, і представлять своє бачення залучення громадянського суспільства до цього процесу.
Дуже коротко сказати про імунітет. Це дуже важливе питання. And again, I'll switch to English. A few years ago, OBSЄ prepared a very important opinion on what we called anti-Maidan legislation. And we spent a lot of, actually, large part of this opinion was dealing with attempts to remove parliamentary immunity. And we fully subscribe of what President Cox's report and his team are saying when it comes to parliamentary immunity. And I think this is an issue to which we pay a lot of attention. No one is above the law, but when you see about political developments taking place in many of the countries in this region, including my own country, Poland, my personal opinion is that parliamentary immunity is very relevant and will remain relevant for years to come. And we're talking about functional immunity. You know, when we talk about effective and accountable parliaments, you have to find the right balance between keeping MPs accountable, and I really like what President Cox said, that good system will allow good people to be liberated. It takes time. You know, we certainly should avoid a situation that we are applying group responsibility and we go after all the MPs because of a number of wrongdoings. You have to create a system, and effective means that you have to have an effective opposition. An effective parliamentary opposition can only function in a system where you have an effective functional immunity. And that's the balance which we will see in a number of countries in this region. And I think when you have this discussion, I would strongly encourage you to look at our legal opinion which we prepared a few years ago, the Venice Commission recommendations which were issued in 2014. And I think this part of the report is very important, and achieving this balance would require a lot of political compromises.
It's also about the Cox report. Дякую.